"You're not who I ordered," Evelyn Price said as the stranger stepped down from the stagecoach. But when the giant cowboy handed her a contract bearing her own signature on land she had never agreed to surrender, she had one question. Had he come to save her ranch, or because he already knew who was trying to take it? Dust rolled beneath the coach wheels as Samuel Granger lowered his bedroll onto Granite Pass Road. Evelyn kept the ranch gate between them. "1 week," she said. "You work for wages, nothing more." Sam nodded and handed her Calvin Reed's letter. Then came a second paper, her signature, Sloan Freight's name, and a claim against Westcut and Cold Spring. Evelyn's eyes lifted. Sam knew that road. Worse, he knew Sloan, and he wasn't telling her why. "If you were Evelyn, would you let him through that gate? Stay with me." By the last week of September 1889, the nights were already cold in Ash Creek Valley. Snow had not reached the valley floor yet, but there was white along the high shoulders of the Bighorns, and every rancher east of the mountains had begun counting hay twice. Evelyn Price had counted hers 3 times. She stood beside the little stage stop on Granite Pass Road, with one gloved hand resting on the rail. Behind her, the road ran south through miles of dry grass and cottonwood. Northward, it climbed toward country where winter could close a trail in a single afternoon. The stage was late. Evelyn checked the small watch that had belonged to her father, snapped the cover shut, and slipped it back into her coat. Calvin Reed was supposed to be on that coach. For 2 months, they had exchanged letters. Calvin knew remount horses, winter feed, and the mountain roads. More important, he had agreed to work for wages. That mattered to Evelyn. She was hiring help, nothing more. The Price Ranch had survived 18 months without George. It would survive another winter if she could get 12 remount horses delivered before the heavy snow, keep enough hay under cover, and prevent another promissory note from coming due before spring. Simple things on paper. Winter had a way of making paper look foolish. At last she heard harness bells. The coach appeared around the bend in a haze of red-brown dust. The driver pulled the team down hard beside the stop. "Evening, Mrs. Price, Mr. Dobbs." The driver climbed down stiffly and opened the coach door. A boot appeared, then another. The man who followed had to lower his head beneath the doorframe. Evelyn's eyes traveled upward despite herself. He was exceptionally tall, perhaps 6'7", with the broad back and heavy forearms of a man accustomed to lifting harness, setting posts, and working animals that outweighed him. His brown duster was gray with road dust. His hat had been repaired along the brim. Nothing about him suggested money. He looked at Evelyn. His eyes were calmer than the rest of him. The driver pulled a bedroll and worn leather bag from the coach. "That all, Sam?" "All of it, Sam, not Calvin." Evelyn straightened. "You're not who I ordered." The man's mouth moved at one corner, not quite a grin. "No, ma'am? Then why are you standing here?" He set his bedroll in the dirt rather than stepping closer. "Samuel Granger. Calvin Reed sent me." Evelyn said nothing. Sam reached inside his coat slowly enough that she could see what he was doing and brought out a folded envelope. She recognized Calvin's handwriting before she took it. Evelyn opened the letter. Calvin had been riding with a freight wagon near Buffalo Creek when the rear wheel broke on a descent. The wagon rolled. His left leg had been badly broken. The doctor expected him to walk again, not soon. Calvin's final lines were shorter. "Granger knows horses better than most men I have worked with. He knows Granite Pass in bad weather. I told him your terms. He agreed to them. If you don't want him, pay him nothing and send him on." Evelyn read the last sentence twice, then folded the letter. "I didn't authorize Mr. Reed to hire somebody in my place." "No, ma'am. You came anyway. I did." "Why?" "Because Reed couldn't." The answer irritated her because there was nothing in it to argue with. She looked toward the stage driver. Dobbs was pretending to tighten a trace. Evelyn knew pretending when she saw it. "You know him?" Dobbs glanced at Sam. "Heard of him. That was not an answer either. Evelyn returned her attention to the stranger. You understand, this is a horse ranch, Mr. Granger. I'm not looking for somebody to sit by a stove until spring. I'd be disappointed if you were. For the first time, Evelyn nearly smiled. Nearly. She tucked Calvin's letter into her coat. All right, I'll look at the horses with you tomorrow morning. Then I'll decide whether there's another paper. His voice had changed, only slightly, Evelyn noticed. Sam reached into the same envelope and removed several folded sheets. This was with Reed's things. She took them. The first page looked familiar. Price Horse Ranch, 12 remount horses, delivery before the winter closure of Granite Pass Road. She had negotiated those terms herself. Then she turned to the appendix. Her thumb stopped against the paper. In the event Price Horse Ranch failed to fulfill the winter remount delivery, Sloan Freight and Stage Company would receive use of Westcut and access to Cold Spring for a period of 3 years as compensation against the outstanding obligation. Evelyn read it again. The road noise seemed to disappear. Cold Spring was not merely a watering hole. In a hard winter, it was the difference between moving horses through Westcut and turning them back. The spring stayed open when shallow ponds froze. Freight teams used the same country for the same reason. 3 years of access could become something much harder to take back. She turned to the last page. There was her signature, Evelyn Price, her handwriting, her E with the lower loop she had never managed to straighten. She felt the paper tighten beneath her fingers. I never agreed to this. Sam did not answer. I signed the remount contract. I did not sign away 3 years of road and water access. Still, he said nothing. Evelyn looked at him sharply. Been carrying this all the way here. Don't you have anything to say? Figured you'd rather read it before hearing what I think. That stopped her. George had always done the opposite. He would explain first. Decide what a paper meant. Tell her which part mattered. Sometimes she had not seen the paper until months later. Evelyn folded the appendix. Where did Calvin get this? From Everett Sloan. Her eyes lifted. Sloan Freight and Stage Company had wagons on half the northern road. Everybody in Ash Creek Valley knew the name. And how do you know Sloan? There it was, a pause, small enough that another person might have missed it. Evelyn did not. Worked around his outfits once. What kind of work? Freight, mostly. Mostly. Sam met her gaze. Yes, ma'am. The stage driver climbed onto his box. Road's not getting any younger. Sam picked up his bedroll. Evelyn spoke before he could move toward the coach. I didn't say you were leaving. Sam stopped. She hated making decisions without enough information. She hated even more being forced into them by circumstance. But there were 32 horses at Price Ranch. 2 sections of fence that needed work. Hay still to move under cover, and snow sitting on the mountains, 1 week, she said. The wages in Calvin's letter. You sleep in the bunk room behind the barn. At the end of the week, I decide whether you stay, fair enough. And you take instructions from me. I assumed I would. That answer earned him a longer look. Dobbs snapped the reins. The coach rolled away. For a moment, Evelyn and Sam stood alone beside the road. Then Sam bent, lifted his bedroll and bag, and followed her toward the ranch. He did not ask to carry anything she was holding. Evelyn noticed that too. Price Ranch sat half a mile from the stage road behind a weathered gate George had built years earlier. The house was plain, with a porch facing west. Beyond it stood the barn, corrals, hay shed, and a line of cottonwoods following the shallow ground toward Cold Spring. Sam slowed at the gate. His eyes moved from the hay shed to the barn roof, then toward the horses, not admiring, counting. Evelyn recognized the habit because she did the same thing. 2 ranch hands were finishing the evening feed. One of them, Will Dorsey, looked up when Sam approached. His pitchfork stopped. Big Sam Granger? Sam set down his bag. Evening. Will looked at Evelyn, then back at Sam. Whatever he wanted to say, he kept it. Good, Evelyn thought. She was tired of men exchanging information over her head. She showed Sam the bunk room, cot, washstand, small iron stove, nothing more. It isn't much. I've paid for worse. You aren't paying for this one. No, ma'am. Again that almost smile. Before Evelyn could answer, a crash came from the barn. A horse struck the stall wall. Then again. Harder, Will shouted. Evelyn was already moving. Inside, a bay draft gelding was jerking against his halter, one hind hoof hammering the plank wall. Easy, Moses! The horse struck again. Will reached for the lead rope. Don't, Evelyn said. Sam entered behind her. The gelding saw him and threw its head higher. Will backed away. Ham's size seemed to fill the narrow aisle. Evelyn expected him to grab the rope. Instead, Sam removed his coat, then his hat. He placed both on an overturned grain barrel and stopped outside the stall. He did nothing. Moses snorted. Sam waited. Another kick, then another. Between the boards, something flashed. Metal. Sam saw it too. A nail had worked loose from the lower plank. Each time the gelding shifted, the point caught him. Sam opened the stall. Mr. Granger. I see it. His voice remained low. He stepped inside and stopped again. No sudden hands, no attempt to overpower the animal. Moses pulled once, breathing hard. Sam waited until the rope slackened. Then he moved, one hand along the horse's neck, the other down the plank. He bent, caught the loose nail with a pair of pincers from the ledge, and worked it free. The gelding shuddered, then stood. Sam rubbed the animal once behind the jaw and stepped out. That was all. Will stared at him. Evelyn looked at the bent nail in Sam's palm. A man that size could have forced the horse into the corner. He had chosen patience instead. Sam held out the nail, boards split behind it. I'll replace it in daylight. Evelyn took the nail. Tomorrow. Yes, ma'am. Later, after supper, she sat alone at the kitchen table. The lamp burned low beside George's old ledger. Outside, a lantern moved slowly along the fence. Sam. He had apparently decided to inspect the line before sleeping. Evelyn turned back to the contract. Original agreement on the left, Sloan's copy on the right. She compared dates, delivery numbers, signatures, then the appendix. Her pencil stopped. Parcel 18. Evelyn opened the tax ledger. She knew the number before finding the page. Price Horse Ranch. 16. She looked again. Parcel 18, 16, 18. The difference was 2 strokes of ink. The difference might also be a road, a spring, and the ranch's winter survival. Someone had not simply added language beneath her signature. Someone had attached that signature to a different piece of land. A horse shifted outside. Evelyn raised her eyes. Through the dark window, Sam's lantern was moving back toward the barn. The stranger who had brought her the paper, the stranger who knew Everett Sloan, the stranger who had paused before telling her how. Evelyn closed the ledger and turned the key in the small desk lock. Outside, the lantern disappeared. For the first time that evening, the house was completely dark, and Evelyn Price still could not decide whether Samuel Granger had arrived to help her uncover what was happening to her land, or whether he already knew. By sunrise, frost had silvered the top rail of the corral. Evelyn was already in the barn when Sam came in carrying a coil of rope over one shoulder. He had repaired the split plank before breakfast, not temporarily. He had cut a new board to length, planed the edge, set the nails clean, and checked the stall twice for anything that could catch a hoof. Evelyn ran her fingers across the new wood. You work early. Sam set the rope down. Horses do. She looked toward Moses. The draft gelding was eating quietly. Sam did not ask whether she had found anything in the contract. That surprised her more than if he had. For the next several days, he stayed within the terms she had given him. He worked, nothing more. A cracked breast collar was removed before a freight wagon left the yard. A sorrel mare favoring her front left hoof was separated from the other horses before the soreness turned worse. When rain pushed through the north corner of the hayshed, Sam moved 12 bales before the damp reached them. Evelyn noticed each thing, because she had spent 18 months noticing everything herself. On the fourth morning, Sam stood beside the pasture gate looking south. "We ought to move the remount string down there before the next weather comes." Evelyn followed his gaze. "The southern pasture? Yes. Why? More shelter from the wind, less grass." Sam looked at her. Evelyn went back to the house and returned with the feed ledger tucked beneath her arm. She opened it against the top rail. 28 working horses, 4 draft, 12 remounts scheduled for delivery. "We use the southern pasture now. We lose 3 weeks of grazing before the real cold." Sam studied the columns. She tapped one line with a gloved finger. "Hay won't cover the difference." He read it again, then closed the ledger carefully and handed it back. "Then we don't move them." That was all. No argument, no wounded pride, no explanation about what a man with more years on the trail supposedly knew. Evelyn tucked the ledger under her arm. "You change your mind easily. Only when somebody proves mine wrong." She looked at him for a moment, then walked back toward the barn. Something about that answer stayed with her. 2 days later, they rode into Ash Creek Crossing for lamp oil, horseshoe nails, coffee, and a sack of salt. The settlement was barely more than a trading post, a blacksmith shed, a feed store, and a narrow dining room attached to Mrs. Hanley's boarding house. They ate at the counter because every table was full. Sam sat with his shoulders turned slightly sideways so he did not crowd the man beside him. The coffee cup looked almost too small in his hand. Evelyn was halfway through a biscuit when 2 cattlemen came in from the road. One of them stopped. "Well, I'll be." Sam did not turn. The man grinned at his companion. "Big Sam Granger." The room changed. Not much. A spoon stopped against a bowl. The blacksmith looked up from his plate. Sam's fingers tightened once around the cup. The cattleman leaned an elbow on the counter. "Heard you were down south." Sam took another drink. "Was," the man chuckled. "Still knocking men flat when they look at you wrong?" Evelyn watched Sam's hand. The knuckles had gone pale, but he set the cup down carefully enough that the coffee did not spill. Then he placed 2 coins beside his plate. "Meal was good, Mrs. Hanley." He stood. The cattleman moved aside without being asked. Sam walked out. No threat, no raised voice. Nothing the room could carry into another story. Evelyn paid for her meal and followed. She found him beside the hitching rail tightening the cinch on her mare. "Was it true?" Sam kept his eyes on the strap. "Some of it." "Which part?" I hit him. He pulled the leather through the buckle. "The part they leave out is why." Evelyn waited. Sam did not continue. For once, she let the silence stay where he had put it. They rode home with the supplies tied behind their saddles. Near the eastern wash, they came across a wagon loaded with hay sitting at a bad angle. One rear wheel had sunk deep into the soft ground left by the week's rain. 2 men were trying to lift the axle with a short timber. Sam dismounted. Ev did too. One of the men looked at her. "We can manage, Mrs. Price." She ignored him. Sam crouched near the axle. "Need another lever?" "No," Evelyn said. Sam looked up. She walked to the lead team, unhooked the left trace, and moved the horses 5 feet down slope. Then she pointed toward a dead cottonwood lying beside the wash. "Use that trunk as the pivot. Pull the rear right, not straight ahead." Sam studied the angle, then nodded. "That'll do it." They reset the line. Sam and the 2 men lifted while Evelyn handled the team. The wheel came free with a sucking sound of mud. The wagon rolled onto firmer ground. One of the men laughed. "Well, Mrs. Price, you've done that before." Sam wiped his hands on his trousers. "You've done that before," he repeated. Evelyn climbed into the saddle. "I've been alive before you arrived." For half a second, Sam looked surprised. Then he laughed. It was not loud, but it was the first real laugh she had heard from him. Evelyn looked forward before he could see the corner of her mouth move. The next morning she rode alone to the county seat. She did not tell Sam why. Edwin Foster kept the recorder's office in a narrow room behind the county clerk's desk. Shelves of deed books climbed almost to the ceiling. The room smelled of dust, ink, damp wool, and the coal stove burning near the wall. Foster adjusted his spectacles when Evelyn placed the copied appendix before him. Parcel 18? That's what it says. Price Ranch is 16. I know. He looked at her over the rims. Then what exactly are you asking me to find? Everything attached to 18. It took nearly an hour. Foster opened 2 index books and 1 older survey volume. At last he turned the book around. Parcel 18 was not the ranch house. It was not the barn. It was a narrow strip running along West Cut toward Cold Spring. Evelyn leaned closer. Her finger followed the inked line. Who filed this? Survey request came through Sloan Interests. Her jaw tightened. Foster turned another page. Witness here. Evelyn saw the name, George Price. For several seconds, she did not move. George had known about Parcel 18. He had stood witness to a survey involving the road, and he had never told her. The old familiar pressure came back beneath her ribs. Not grief exactly, something harder. She asked Foster for a copy. He hesitated, then reached for a fresh sheet. By the time Evelyn rode home, the light was thinning. Sam was under the barn awning sharpening a hoof knife. She walked straight to the workbench and laid the copied survey in front of him. Sam wiped the blade clean before touching the paper. His eyes moved over the page, then stopped. Just once, at a small notation near the northern edge. R47. Evelyn saw it. You know that mark. Sam's gaze stayed on the paper. Survey mark. I know what it is. She pushed the sheet closer. Why do you know this one? His jaw shifted. Seen one like it. Where? He folded the paper once along the existing crease. On freight work, again. A true answer, shaped to hide something larger. Evelyn took the page back. She did not accuse him, not yet. That evening, the temperature dropped hard. A dusting of snow appeared along the first dark rise beneath the bighorns. Evelyn went to check the barn after supper and found Sam sitting alone at the workbench beneath a hanging lantern. Something small rested in his hands. Leather, a glove, far too small for him. He was stitching a split seam with waxed thread. Evelyn stopped at the doorway. Yours? Sam glanced down. My brother's. She came closer. He still use it? No. The needle passed through the leather. He died a long time ago. Evelyn did not say she was sorry. The words felt too easy. Sam pulled the stitch tight. I left for a cattle drive when he was 14. Another stitch. Thought there'd be another winter. He turned the glove over. There wasn't. Evelyn picked up the bridle she had come to repair and sat at the far end of the bench. Neither of them spoke again for several minutes. Only leather creaked beneath their hands. Wind moved through the barn boards. A horse stamped in the next stall. The quiet between them did not feel empty. It felt chosen. By morning, that quiet was gone. A rider came up the ranch road just after breakfast. Clean black coat, good bay horse, gray gloves. Everett Sloan dismounted without hurry. Evelyn met him on the porch. Sam remained near the barn. Sloan removed his hat. Mrs. Price, Mr. Sloan. He held out a folded notice. She did not take it at first. What is it? A chance to keep a small problem from becoming an expensive one. Now she took it. The notice listed the disputed remount contract and the outstanding note attached to Price Ranch. Sloan spoke calmly. You can complete the winter horse delivery as written. Evelyn kept reading. Or settle the note early. She looked up. I don't have to settle it early, then acknowledge my company's access through West Cut until the delivery question is resolved. No. Sloan's expression barely changed. That was quick. It was clear. He glanced toward Cold Spring. 3 years of access is a small price compared with losing buyers because nobody knows whether your road will be open. You don't own the road. That's what the paperwork will decide. Evelyn folded the notice. My answer is still no. Sloan looked toward Sam. For the first time, something colder entered his face. You should have told her what happened the last time you stood on that road. Evelyn turned. Sam had gone completely still. He did not ask Sloan what he meant. He did not look confused. He already knew. And this time, Evelyn was certain of one thing. Whatever Samuel Granger had seen at West Cut before he came to Price Ranch, he had not told her all of it. Everett Sloan rode away before noon. The trouble stayed behind. 3 days later, a messenger from a horse buyer in Johnson County brought Evelyn a folded note. The buyer was postponing delivery of 6 remount horses until the question over West Cut was settled. Evelyn read it once, then she carried it into the kitchen and opened the ledger. Sam stood in the doorway. What did they say? They don't want horses. They may not be able to move north. He took off his hat. How short does that put us? Short enough. She sharpened her pencil. The old freight wagon could be sold. 2 young colts might bring hay in trade. Lamp oil could be cut. Coffee could not. She drew a line through coffee, then stared at it. Sam almost smiled. Evelyn erased the line. Don't say anything. Wasn't going to, by the following afternoon. She had sold the wagon and arranged to trade 2 colts for winter hay. Sam found her counting receipts at the kitchen table. I have money put away. Her pencil stopped. No, you don't know how much. It doesn't matter. Evelyn, work here. You don't own my debts. Sam held her gaze, then nodded. All right, no second offer, no wounded silence. He simply went back outside. Strangely, that made refusing him harder. The weather broke 2 mornings later. At dawn, the bighorns disappeared behind a wall of gray. By 8, snow was crossing the yard sideways. Will came running from the north corral. 6 remounts are still beyond West Cut. Sam looked toward the mountains. How long? Since yesterday. We've got maybe 2 hours before that trail closes. Evelyn was already reaching for her coat. Sam moved toward the doorway at the same time. For 1 second, his body filled it. It's turning bad. I can see that. The upper cut will ice first. They're my horses. He did not move. Evelyn's eyes hardened. Then Sam caught himself. He stepped aside. Completely. Your ranch. A beat. Your call. Evelyn buttoned her coat. Saddled 2 horses. Yes, ma'am. They found the remounts bunched against a stand of pine above Cold Spring. Snow covered their backs. Evelyn took the lead rope while Sam pushed the nervous animals from behind. By the time they reached the narrowest part of West Cut, the wagon ruts had disappeared. Keep them high, Sam called. Evelyn turned in the saddle. Why? The answer came beneath him, a dull crack. The outer edge of the trail gave way. Sam's horse dropped sideways. He kicked free, but the reins twisted around his arm and dragged him several feet down the slope. Sam, hold the string! Evelyn pulled the led horse around before the remounts could scatter. Below her, Sam had caught against a young pine. His horse struggled farther down slope. Don't come down! Evelyn ignored the words. She could not pull a man Sam's size uphill by hand, so she did not try. She cut the tangled trace from the spare line, looped her rope around a thick pine trunk, and brought her mare sideways until the rope tightened. Sam, get it around you. He understood immediately. He secured the line beneath his arms. Evelyn moved her horse forward. The rope drew tight around the tree. Sam climbed while the mare supplied what Evelyn's body could not. A minute later, his hand caught the trail edge. Evelyn grabbed his coat and pulled until he rolled onto solid ground. For several seconds, neither spoke. Snow collected on Sam's hat. He looked at the rope, then at her. You've done that before too? Evelyn breathed hard. I've been alive before you arrived, despite everything. He laughed. They recovered his horse and moved on. By dusk, All 6 remounts were safe, but the storm had closed the road home. Sam pointed through the trees, survey shack, quarter-mile east. The abandoned shack was barely large enough for a stove, a table, and 2 bunks. One window had been covered with boards. Sam got the stove drawing while Evelyn rubbed feeling back into her hands. Her fingers had gone white. He noticed. Without a word, he removed his gloves and held them out. "I have gloves, not warm ones." She looked at his bare hands. "You'll freeze." Hard to freeze hands this ugly. She took them. They were far too large, but they were warm. Later, they sat opposite each other beside the stove, with one blanket around Evelyn's shoulders, and the other drying near the fire. When Sam removed his wet shirt to replace it with the spare from his saddlebag, Evelyn saw an old scar crossing the back of his shoulder. She looked away before he caught her staring. He caught her anyway. "Horse camp?" she asked. Sam sat down. No, he knew what she meant. The foreman. Evelyn waited. Sam stared at the stove. He had a stable boy working for him. Maybe 15. His jaw tightened. Boy dropped a bridle. Foreman took the buckle end to him. Sam rubbed one thumb across his palm. "I told him to stop, and he didn't. No. So you hit him. One time." The stove clicked as the iron heated. "He went down. I checked him first thing. He was breathing." Amaham looked toward the dark window. "They fired me before supper. By the next cattle camp, the story was that Big Sam Granger nearly killed a man because he didn't like his tone." "Would you do it again?" he thought before answering. "I'd stop him again." A pause. "I'd find a better way if I could." Evelyn watched him. A man built like Sam could spend his life mistaking strength for permission. He seemed to have spent his learning the opposite. Outside, snow scraped across the wall. Evelyn pulled his gloves tighter around her hands. What did Sloan mean? Sam did not pretend not to understand. "I worked for him. You told me that." "I didn't tell you how long." She waited. "Nearly 2 years." Evelyn's face changed. "Doing what?" "Freight. Horses. Sometimes guiding survey crews." The room seemed smaller. "Through Granite Pass? Yes, West Cut." Sam looked at her. Evelyn leaned forward. "Parcel 18? He did not answer. "Not quickly enough, Sam." A heavy crack sounded overhead. Both looked up. Snow had shifted across the roof. Another groan came from the rafters. Sam stood. "We need to clear the load." The conversation ended because it had to, but the question did not. By morning, the storm had weakened enough for them to ride. They reached Price Ranch near noon. Evelyn could barely feel her feet when she stepped down. Sam took one look at her face, inside. She almost argued, then did not. He fed the stove, put coffee beside her, and went back out to settle the horses. When he returned, Evelyn was asleep at the kitchen table, or appeared to be. Sam stood there for a moment, then took a wool blanket from the chair. He laid it over her shoulders carefully. He did not touch her face, did not move the hair that had fallen across her cheek. He simply stepped away. He stopped. Evelyn opened her eyes. She had been awake. He turned. She rose. Neither spoke. She crossed the space between them. Sam's expression changed, but he stayed where he was. Evelyn placed one hand against his shirt. Then she kissed him. Briefly, warmly, nothing more. When she stepped back, Sam did not reach for her. "You sure?" Evelyn looked at him. "I was. The word settled between them. Sam understood. Parcel 18 was still there. So was the silence around it. 4 days later, Evelyn rode to the county seat alone. Edwin Foster frowned when she asked for the original survey book. "Mrs. Price, those volumes aren't copied for casual inspection. This isn't casual." He studied her face, then disappeared into the records room. The book he returned with was thick, cracked along the spine and tied with faded cord. Evelyn opened it carefully. Survey measurements, reference lines, West Cut Parcel 18. She turned another page. A witness column ran down the side. George Price appeared once, then another name. Evelyn stopped breathing for a moment. Samuel Granger. She read it again. There could be no mistake. Samuel Granger had not merely worked near Sloan's freight outfits. He had not merely seen a mark like R47. His name was on the survey being used to threaten her ranch. By the time Evelyn reached home, darkness had covered the valley. A lantern burned inside the barn. Sam was repairing the stall door where Moses had kicked loose another board. He heard her boots behind him. Road bad? Evelyn placed a sheet of paper on the workbench. Sam looked down. His own name stared back at him. The hammer in his hand stopped. Slowly, he set it down. Evelyn removed her gloves. Her hands were steady. That frightened him more than anger would have. You led the survey crew. Sam looked at her. Yes. One word. No place left to hide inside it. You knew Parcel 18. Yes, knew R47. His silence answered first. Sus. Evelyn swallowed. 4 days earlier, she had kissed this man. An hour before that, he had given her his gloves while his own hands went cold. He had stepped aside when she chose to ride into the storm. He had trusted her to save him when the trail collapsed. And all that time, he had carried this. She pushed the paper toward him. How long were you going to wait? Sam opened his mouth. Evelyn did not move. For once, she would not accept half an answer. Outside, the wind pushed against the barn. Inside, beneath the yellow lantern light, Samuel Granger finally understood that whatever truth he had believed he was protecting Evelyn from had become something worse. He had taken away her right to face it herself. Sam looked down at the survey copy. I led Sloan's crew through West Cut 3 years ago. Evelyn waited. No interruption, no help. This time he would have to give her everything. We measured the road, the spring approach, and the north line. Sloan said that he wanted better routes for his freight wagons. You believed him? At first, Sam rested both hands on the workbench. Later I saw the same crews working water stops farther north. Then contracts started changing. Road access, grazing rights, places freight outfits had used by agreement became places Sloan claimed he controlled. Parcel 18, I knew the survey, and R47 I helped set that line. Evelyn's eyes closed for 1 second. When they opened again, they were fixed on him. When Calvin showed you my contract, you knew. I knew something was wrong, and you came here without telling me. I wanted to make sure of what? That I remembered the boundary right. Sam's voice remained low. The filing Sloan is using doesn't match what we measured. Evelyn stared at him. There it was. The information she had been pulling from him one piece at a time. You knew that when you stepped off the coach. I suspected it. And R47, I remembered it. But you said you'd seen one like it. Yes. Why? Sam's answer came slowly. Because I thought if I could prove what Sloan had done first, you wouldn't have to carry the fear before there was anything you could do about it. Something in Evelyn's face went still. Not anger, worse, recognition. You thought you knew what I could handle. Sam did not answer. Shatatit, I thought I could fix it first. That's not what I said. His eyes dropped. No. Evelyn stepped closer to the workbench. George did that. The name changed the room. Him looked up. Every debt I found after he died. Every promise he made without telling me. Every agreement that became my problem after there was nobody left to answer for it. Her voice never rose. He always had a reason. Sam said nothing. He didn't want me worried. He didn't want me burdened. He'd take care of it. She gave a short breath that held no humor. Then one day he was dead, and all the things he had protected me from were sitting in a ledger with my name attached. Evelyn, you did the same thing. I know. That stopped her. Sam removed his gloves. He placed them on the bench between them. "You're right." No defense followed. No promise that he was different from George. No explanation that his intentions had been good. Evelyn looked at the gloves. She remembered wearing them in the survey shack, remembered kissing him. That made what came next harder. "I want you gone before morning." Sam's face did not change at first. Then his jaw tightened once. "All right." She had expected something else, an argument, perhaps even hoped for one, though she hated herself for it. Instead, he nodded. Before morning, Evelyn turned and walked out of the barn. Sam did not follow. At first light, Will Dorsey found him tying his bedroll behind the saddle. "You're leaving." "Yes." "Now?" "Yes." Will looked toward the house. "Mrs. Price send you off?" Sam tightened the strap. Will lowered his voice. "Sam, Sloan will come down on this place the minute he hears." "I know, then stay." Sam looked at him. Will took half a step back without meaning to. Sam noticed. He always noticed. His voice softened. "Her land." He checked the saddle knot. "Her decision." Inside the house, Evelyn heard the horse leave. She did not go to the window until the hoofbeats had faded. On the kitchen table lay an envelope. Inside was the portion of Sam's wages he had not spent, the survey copy, and a hand-drawn map of West Cut. Near the north line, he had marked one place, R47. Beneath the map was a single sentence. "This is everything I should have given you the first day." No apology, no request to forgive him, no declaration of love. Evelyn folded the paper. Then she sat alone at the table until the coffee went cold. Sloan moved 3 days later. He never came to the ranch. He did not need to. The first blow arrived as a canceled purchase order for 6 horses. The second came from the feed merchant. No more winter credit. The third was a notice concerning the promissory note. Then Sloan's offer arrived. He would settle the outstanding debt. He would guarantee the horse purchases through spring. Evelyn could keep the house, the barn, most of the pasture, and her herd. In exchange, Sloan Freight and Stage Company would receive exclusive access to West Cut and Cold Spring for 10 years. 10 years. It looked generous until Evelyn understood what it meant. Sloan did not want her home. He wanted every wagon that needed her road and every team that needed her water. He wanted the future. That night, Evelyn laid Sloan's offer beside Sam's map. The stove clicked. Wind pushed powdery snow against the window. Her eyes moved from R47 to George's old expense ledger. She began reading backward through entries from 3 years earlier. Oats, harness, leather, blacksmith work, fence staples. Then one small line, A. Bell, cedar posts, north line. Evelyn sat straighter. Amos Bell, she knew the name. By sunrise, she was saddling her mare. Amos Bell lived north of Ash Creek on a small place tucked against a low ridge. He came to the door with a cane in one hand and a wool blanket over his shoulders. "Mrs. Price, I need to ask you about a survey." His expression changed. "Whose?" "Everett Sloan's," and let her inside. The old man's front room smelled of cedar smoke and liniment. Survey chains hung from wooden pegs beside the door, dark with age. Evelyn placed Sam's map on the table. Bell leaned over it. His finger stopped at R47. "Where'd you get this, Sam Granger?" Bell looked up. "Big fellow, you remember him? Hard man to forget. What happened on that survey?" Bell sat back. "We measured what Sloan told us to measure. Sam led the horses and knew the road. And afterward?" Bell's mouth tightened. "After the official work was done, Sloan came back." Evelyn did not move. He had a wooden boundary marker shifted. Did Sam see it? No. Granger had already taken 2 pack horses down the pass. Could the marker be moved without changing the survey? Wood can be moved anywhere a man wants. Evelyn looked at the map. Was there anything they couldn't move? Bell's eyes lifted. Iron. They rode to Westcott the next morning. Nora Whitcomb came with them from the county seat, wrapped in a heavy brown coat and carrying a shovel across her saddle. "I suppose when you asked me to witness something," Nora said, "I expected paper. There may be paper later. Of course there will." Bell directed them from horseback because his old leg would not take the frozen ground. They dug where Sam had marked R47, nothing. Widened the hole. Frozen dirt, stone, roots, no iron. The sun sank toward the ridge. Nora leaned on her shovel. "We lose the light in 20 minutes. Evelyn stared at the empty hole. Sam's memory could have been wrong, or Sloan could have removed the stake. Then her eyes moved toward an old cedar stump farther north. She pulled George's copied expense entry from her coat. Cedar posts. North line, not marker. Posts. Evelyn looked back toward Bell. If those cedar posts weren't the boundary, what were they for? Bell frowned. Then his face changed. "Reference." Evelyn walked toward the stump. "How far?" Bell squinted across the ground. "Chainman spacing. Try 20 paces east." Evelyn counted. At 20, she drove the shovel down. Frozen soil resisted. Again. Then, clang. Nobody moved. Evelyn dropped to her knees. She cleared dirt with both gloved hands until a rusted iron head appeared. Bell dismounted, despite his leg. Nora held the lantern low. Evelyn scraped the metal clean with the edge of her glove. R47. Below it was the original parcel number. Bell let out a slow breath. "There she is." Evelyn looked toward Westcott. The true boundary put the road inside Price Ranch access. For the first time in weeks, something opened in her chest. Not victory, a door toward it. Then Edwin Foster's warning returned to her. A marker alone would not prove who changed the filing. "We need the measurements." Bell nodded. "The original field notes. Would the recorder have them? Maybe one copy. Maybe." Bell looked at her. There was another. Evelyn rose slowly. "Where?" Bell glanced down at Sam's hand-drawn map. Granger kept his field notebook. The cold seemed to sharpen around her. "Sam, after he quit Sloan, said one day somebody might need to know where we actually put those lines." Evelyn looked at R47 beneath the lantern. The last piece of proof she needed had been carried away from Price Ranch by the same man she had ordered to leave. And this time, if she wanted Samuel Granger back beside her, Evelyn Price would have to be the one who chose to go find him. She found Sam 2 days later at the horse camp south of Ash Creek Valley. The place sat beside Granite Pass Road where the country opened into low sage and winter-brown grass. 3 corrals leaned against the wind. Smoke rose from a cook shack. A dozen draft horses stood near a rail waiting for shoes. Sam was beneath the lifted hoof of a heavy gray gelding. Even bent over, he was easy to recognize. Evelyn dismounted. "Sam." The hammer stopped. 2 men near the forge looked toward her. Sam lowered the gelding's hoof and straightened. He did not come toward her. "Evelyn, I need to ask you something." He waited. "Amos Bell says you kept the original field notes from the Sloan survey." A long breath left him. "Yes." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "You had those too?" "Yes." Sam walked to his saddle hanging over the corral rail. From the saddlebag he removed a small, oil-darkened notebook held shut with a leather cord. He brought it to her. No explanation, no bargain. He simply held it out. Evelyn took it. The pages contained distances, bearings, rough sketches, dates, and small corrections written in pencil. R47 appeared beside the Westcott line. The measurements matched the iron stake. She closed the book. "You kept this for 3 years. I knew later filings didn't look right. And you still didn't give it to me." "No." There was no point pretending the old hurt had vanished simply because she needed him. Sam looked at the notebook in her hands. "It's yours if it helps." "It isn't mine." "No." His eyes met hers. Neither was the choice I took from you." For a moment, Evelyn heard nothing but the forge behind him and the slow breathing of the gray horse. Sam had finally said it without dressing it as protection. She tucked the notebook into her coat. "There's going to be a county hearing." "When?" "Thursday." He nodded. "I want you there." Something changed in his face. Not hope exactly. "Why?" "Because you were on that survey." Sam waited. Evelyn added, "And because I want you standing beside me when I do this. Not in front of her. Not instead of her. Beside her." "If you want me there," he said, "I'll be there." Thursday morning came hard and bright. The county meeting room was already crowded when Evelyn arrived. A wood stove snapped in the corner. Ranchers stood along the walls with hats in their hands. Freight men occupied the rear benches. Edwin Foster sat behind a broad oak desk with the disputed filings arranged before him. Everett Sloan stood near the window. His coat was clean. His papers were cleaner. He had brought the filed agreement bearing Evelyn's signature, the promissory note, 2 merchants who had done business with Price Ranch, and a representative familiar with his freight contracts. Sam entered last. Conversation thinned. He removed his hat and stood against the wall. He did not move toward Evelyn until she looked at him. Only then did he take a place several feet to her right. Foster began. "This meeting concerns disputed access through West Cut and the supporting survey record attached to Parcel 18. I am not sitting here as a criminal court. I am determining what documents this office can recognize until the boundary record is properly reviewed." Sloan went first. His argument was simple. There was a contract. There was Evelyn's signature. There was debt. There was a failed delivery. There was a filed survey. He did not threaten anyone. He did not need to. Then Evelyn stood. She placed the Price Ranch tax ledger on Foster's desk, Parcel 16. Beside it, she placed the appendix, Parcel 18, then George's expense ledger. A payment to Amos Bell for cedar posts on the north line. Bell gave his account of the original survey, and the wooden marker Sloan had ordered moved afterward. Sloan interrupted. "An old man's memory is not a boundary." "No," Evelyn said. She placed a wrapped object on the desk. Foster unfolded the cloth. The rusted top of the recovered iron stake showed R47 and the original parcel number. The room went quiet. Then came Sam's notebook. Foster compared the field measurements with the filed survey. Once, then again. His expression tightened. Sloan's voice remained calm. "That notebook belongs to Samuel Granger." "It does," Evelyn said. "A man who worked for me." "Yes, a man whose reputation is hardly unknown in this valley." Sloan turned toward the room. "Some of you remember the horse camp incident." Nobody answered. Sloan looked directly at Sam. "You expect these people to trust the word of Big Sam Granger?" Every face turned. Sam's hands hung open beside him. He could have filled the room with his voice. Instead, he spoke quietly. "They don't have to trust my word." He looked at Evelyn. "Have the measurements." Then he stopped. Evelyn stepped forward. The distance from the cedar reference line to R47 matches Mr. Granger's field book. It does not match the appendix being used against Price Ranch. Foster leaned over the records. Amos Bell shifted his cane. Then he pointed to a notation near the bottom of Sam's original page. "Edwin. That date." Foster adjusted his spectacles. Evelyn looked closer. Beside the measurement was another note. "Jaji. Price requested north line verification. Bell to set cedar references." Evelyn went still. "George?" Bell nodded slowly. "He came to me after he noticed the numbers weren't right." "You never told me." He said he wanted to verify it before he contested anything. The irony landed quietly. George had still done what George always did. He had kept the problem to himself, but this time, the thing he had hidden was not another surrender. He had been trying to preserve West Cut, trying to prove something was wrong. Then the wagon accident had taken him before he finished. Evelyn touched the edge of his old ledger. She did not forgive every secret because of one good intention. She did not need to. But one piece of the past finally fit where it belonged. Foster closed the survey volume. The disputed appendix cannot be used by this office to establish exclusive access through West Cut while these measurements remain unresolved. Sloan's mouth hardened. Foster continued, "The original survey record will require review and reinstatement against the physical markers and field notes. Until that is completed, Sloan Freight and Stage Company has no established exclusive right to West Cut or Cold Spring under the documents before me." The room stayed quiet. Then one of the horse buyers near the rear spoke. "If the road isn't blocked by Sloan's claim, my purchase order stands." Evelyn turned. 6 horses, enough money to buy hay, enough to carry Price Ranch farther into winter. Not salvation. Time. Sometimes time was what survival looked like. Sloan gathered his papers. Nobody stopped him. Nobody jeered. He walked toward the door. Men who once moved quickly when Everett Sloan entered a room simply stayed where they were. For the first time, his power looked no larger than one man in a clean coat carrying a stack of papers. Outside, the afternoon sun reflected off old snow piled along the boardwalk. Evelyn stayed inside until everyone else had gone. When she stepped out, Sam was tightening the cinch on his horse. "Where are you going?" He looked at her. "South, maybe." "Why?" A faint line appeared between his brows. "Because you asked me to leave." "I did." Sam waited, and you listened. His hand stopped on the saddle strap. Evelyn walked closer. "You remember what I said when you stepped off that coach?" The corner of his mouth lifted. "Hard to forget. You weren't who I ordered." "No, ma'am. Calvin Reed was supposed to be a hired hand." "I know. I don't need one anymore." The smile disappeared from Sam's face. He did not assume, did not reach for her. "Then what do you want, Evelyn?" She looked at the man who could have fought her decision and had chosen to honor it. "I want you to come home with me." Sam was silent for a long time. Then he shook his head slightly. "First day I told you I might be the man you deserved," Evelyn remembered. "I was wrong." Her brow tightened. Sam looked straight at her. "You deserved the choice." Evelyn held out her hand. "And I'm making it." Sam looked down at her hand, then placed his in it. Carefully, as though even now he understood that holding something was not the same as owning it. By early spring, Cold Spring was running strong again. Snow pulled away from the cottonwoods in dirty white patches, and the first wagon tracks appeared along Granite Pass Road. Price Ranch still owed money. The north fence still leaned. One barn door needed new hinges, but the remount contract was moving again. On a cold March morning, Evelyn led the first string of horses toward West Cut. Sam rode beside her. They reached the place where R-47 stood near the road, cleaned of rust and set visible above the thawing ground. Evelyn reined in. Sam stopped too. He did not ride ahead. She looked at the marker. "Funny thing about a boundary. What's that? It matters who gets to draw it." She nudged her mare forward. 3 steps, then she turned in the saddle. "You coming, Sam?" His expression softened. "You want me there?" Evelyn looked at him. All winter. That had been the question beneath every other question. Not whether she needed him, not whether he could protect her, whether she was free to choose him. "Beside me." Sam touched his heels to his horse. He came forward until they were riding shoulder to shoulder. Not ahead of her, not behind, beside. They crossed West Cut while snowmelt ran beneath the cottonwoods, and the old wagon road emerged from winter one dark track at a time. There would be another winter. There would be debts, broken fences, sick horses, bad roads, and mornings when nothing went according to plan. But Evelyn Price no longer had to choose between independence and love. And Samuel Granger had finally found a place where his strength was not measured by what he could take, fix, or decide for someone else. It was measured by what he had learned never to take from the woman he loved. Her choice. And maybe that was the real thing Evelyn and Sam carried out of that long Wyoming winter. Not a ranch saved without scars. Not a love untouched by mistakes. Something quieter. Evelyn had spent years learning to protect what belonged to her. Her land, her livelihood, her judgment, her right to decide what happened next. Sam had spent years believing a strong man showed his care by carrying trouble before anyone else had to feel its weight. They both had something to unlearn. Evelyn discovered that accepting someone beside her did not mean surrendering the reins. Sam discovered that love could not be called protection if it took away another person's right to know the truth. And when spring finally opened West Cut again, they rode through it together. Not because Evelyn needed a man to save her. Not because Sam needed a woman to give him a home. They chose each other after seeing the mistakes, the wounds, and the difficult truth between them. Maybe that is what second chances really ask of us. Not to forget what hurt, but to decide whether someone has learned enough from that hurt to walk differently beside us. If you had been Evelyn, would you have asked Sam to come home? Tell me in the comments. And if stories about people finding love, dignity, and another chance beneath the wide western sky mean something to you, subscribe and stay with us. There are more forgotten roads, buried truths, and quiet hearts waiting in the next story.